It's trying to get at that sort of sense of creativity and competence and communication and collaboration, all those things that we do in makerspaces, and bringing it into this realm of AI tools.
Today, we're exploring how creativity, tinkering, and hands-on learning supports education. And can AI expand the possibilities for cultivating creativity in the classroom, for learning and teaching?
It's super exciting, Dan. I know makerspaces are all the rage, right? Places that really give students the freedom to explore and to imagine and to design and experiment and bring their ideas to life. So I'm really excited about this episode.
Well, we're lucky to have a guest with us who's at the forefront of creating the kinds of spaces that support this new kind of learning.
Yay! This is going to be a fun one. Let's start tinkering. Welcome to School's In. I am Denise Pope, Senior Lecturer at the Graduate School of Education here at Stanford and also co-founder of Challenge Success. And I am with my co-host, Dan Schwartz, who is the Dean of the Graduate School of Education and who also leads the Stanford Accelerator for Learning.
Well, Dr. Denise Maker Movement Pope.
Maker Movement?
Maker Movement. It's a movement.
It's a movement. Okay, I know a little bit about the maker movement, and to me, it seems a little bit like a hobby. I don't know, am I going to get in trouble for saying that? So let's just start out by finding out, Dan Schwartz, do you have a hobby?
Most of my hobbies turn into chores.
What?
So I have a peach tree, I plant it, that's kind of, I fertilize it, and then pretty soon I have to put like a bird's net on it, and then I get all these peaches and I have to freeze it, and I sort of don't want to do it anymore. And so that's what happens. I have a short attention span.
I would call you a reluctant peach tree hobbyist.
That's very specific, Denise. Thank you. How about you?
I was thinking about this because I knew that we were going to be talking about hobbies. I feel like I'm sort of a boring person. I love to hike and be out in nature. That doesn't seem like a hobby to me. And I love to read. Also, I don't know. Is that a hobby? I have no idea. I like to cook, but I don't like knit or collect stamps or, when I think of a hobby, I think of things, and that's not in my world.
Okay. So you and I may need some empirical research to find out why hobbyists do what they do.
Yeah. So you've done some studying of hobbyists.
I have. And, I don't promote my book very often, ever, but I'm going to read something from it.
Oh,
so
boy.
we did a study where we asked all different types of hobbyists, like gardeners, people who brew beer, motorcycle racers, all sorts of hobbyists. And we gave them a list of 25 possible things that would motivate them. So like to be liked, you might do a hobby to be part of a group, to feel a sense of control. So classic motivations. So what do you think is the number one motivation of hobbyists? The thing that makes it the most satisfying for them? And this was true of every hobby except one.
That it's fun. Wait, I don't understand. That they like doing it. That would be the motivation.
No, we're trying to find out why they like doing it.
Oh, why they like doing it.
What makes it satisfying? Oh, so the number one is to see the fruits of your labor.
Okay.
So hobbyists like to create stuff. They make stuff. So like I brew beer, and I've made this, and I want to see how it turns out.
So like with you, it would be to have someone taste the peaches from your tree. Yes?
Yes. To see. So I want to see how those peaches taste.
Right.
And that's very literal to the fruits of your labor. So I like that.
Yeah, very.
Yeah. So number two is to learn strategies and methods for making stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or for your hobby, like with stamps, you learn all sorts of different organization schemes. To overcome new challenges.
Yeah.
So I should have moved on from a peach tree to kumquat. So it turns out we asked high school students about their favorite classes, and it was the same ranking. It was the same thing. The classes they liked the most.
Class where you
the classes
do something.
They liked the most. The classes they liked the most, they got to see the fruits of their labor. So people like to make stuff, and so I think AI is the next great making space, generative AI.
Okay, wait. Explain this for lay people who don't understand what that means.
I'll give an example. So Great. I went to a couple of retirement parties a year or so ago, and the host of the retirement party read a poem they had written by ChatGPT for the retiree, right? So ChatGPT is this new sort of AI, generative AI, we call it, that's able to sort of speak in language and make your language better. And so they write these poems, and they're incredibly proud, right? It's just all the things I saw from making. They're proud, they shared it. The person who's retiring, I think, was kind of annoyed that, like, you couldn't even go out and buy me a Hallmark card. You had to get the computer to write a poem for me, but they were really proud. So I think this is a natural place for the generative AI. To get people making stuff.
All right. So anyway, we got to get our expert in on this, Dan.
We're going to find out whether it's possible to make an AI makerspace where people get to use AI to create things and all these tools. So I want to introduce Karin Forssell. She's the director of the Learning Design and Technology Master's Program, which is a very, very successful master's program. Congratulations, Karin. And a senior lecturer here at the Graduate School of Education. In addition to that, she directs the GSE Makery, which is a makerspace where students and faculty can explore how making things helps people learn and maybe helps them learn something even beyond what they're trying to make. And now she's been charged with making an artificial intelligence makerspace where you use generative AI and people come in and make poems for retirees, among other things. So welcome, Karin. It's good to have you here.
Good to be here.
So let me ask you, you were charged with making the AI makerspace. We'll save the AI. Let's save the AI. You made a very successful makerspace. It's on the first floor of our main building right now. There's always people in there. It's always noisy as hell.
That's a good sign.
Good or bad, I'm not sure. What did you do to
lively.
make it lively? Perfect. What did you do to make it successful? How'd you make that thing successful?
Well, I mean, it wasn't me alone. Just let's be clear about that. But we explored a variety of different things to try and get people in the door. So we actually borrowed from museum education, the idea of threshold fear, and thought about what it would take for people to feel comfortable just coming in the door. First thing we did was put in a doorstop. That didn't exist before. So the door is open. And then Makery autocorrects to bakery. So we had cookies. And then we started to think about, like, what are the other signals and ways that people can come in? So it's everything from that we have a video online to show people around the space if they want to check it out before they come. We have workshops, we have classes, we have open office hours, we have a manager who's there to answer your questions. A lot of students, actually, we hire several students to provide extended hours and just to be liaisons to different programs and invite their friends to come. So and then we basically say yes to whatever they want to make.
So Denise is a novice. She hears the commotion. She walks into the makerspace for the first time. What happens to her? Do they say, "Here's a saw, go cut stuff"?
The saw's in the back. Actually, what's up front and what a lot of people actually come in for is some of them come in because they want to fix something. So glue and sewing are actually top of the list. And then they get some ideas. There's lots of examples of different projects. And it's like, oh, I want to make one of those. And then there's some people who come in because they heard about us and they're in programs where it's like, oh, I heard you had another 3D printer. Can we use yours? Because there's such a line at the other space. So we work a lot with the other maker spaces and we get a lot of referrals. So to be honest, the first thing that happens, though, is you see the sign that says, welcome, please sign in the box. The book, and it's a bunch of different stamps. You get to stamp and put your name. And then somebody's going to come and say, hi, and how are you, and who are you, and what would you like to do here? So it's very personable in that you are welcome.
Can I ask what a listener might be thinking right now? Why does a graduate school of education at Stanford University have a place for people to use glue and yarn and make stuff?
That's a great question. There are lots of good reasons for this. And one is because they're big in K-12 education. More and more schools are using a classroom to have 3D printers and laser cutters and vinyl cutters and a lot of robotic stuff, and have it all in one space with various curricula so that kids can explore what Dan was talking about before, the joy, the creativity that comes with making something by yourself. Now, traditionally, that's happened in art. It's happened in industrial tech or shop classes. It's happening in food, cooking, or family and consumer sciences, I think is their new name. So it's happened in a lot of places. This is sort of a place where all of it comes together with a lot of computer facilitated making as well.
So Denise,
yeah,
can you think of an activity where you make something and then it helps you do better on like a school test? Or is making its own special track?
Well,
you go to the makerspace to have fun making, and maybe you learn a little persistence or you learn trial and error. But do you get any way to squeeze science out of it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, modeling, right? So the first thing that comes to my mind would be modeling or understanding geometry, which was very hard for me because it's like flat on a page with numbers and stuff. But if I could see it, maybe. I also just remember a long time ago, I made like the planets. Like, probably everybody did that, right? With the styrofoam and the glitter or whatever. And like to show how far away they are from one another. I think I could see all that. Yeah. Am I being too basic?
Karin, what do you think?
Repeat the question.
The question is, what if I'm a school and I'm deciding whether to spend the money on a makerspace,
right?
And I'm trying to decide what are the outcomes? What are the learning outcomes besides learning how to make the very specific thing you're making, which you can't get a job
try something new and overcome and persist and problem solve, because those are good.
Right. Well, I mean, my head was going in a slightly different direction, which is there are lots of benefits from teachers actually coming in and learning to make tools to help their kids learn, because then they actually have to engage more with what kinds of maybe manipulatives, maybe other kinds of tools that they could help with a kid who has a real, maybe it's a common misconception or something that they're really struggling with, and they could illustrate it or make some more tangible interaction. So you could do that peer-to-peer as well. You could have kids like designing some kind of learning tool for younger kids or for peers or somebody in another class that would help them. By trying to teach another kid, they would actually be engaging more deeply in what is it that this is. And we've had all sorts of fun things built, like a subject spinner for the English class. It's like, okay, you got to do a story. So I'm going to make this little spinner tool, and it's going to make you like choose this actor and this mood and this situation or whatever.
Fun.
Yeah,
that's
right?
Fun. Yeah. That's fun.
So one thing is to get in deeper into the subject area. Another is to just sort of fuel the general idea of that learning is purposeful. Right? That we are trying, in some sense, every subject is a making subject, in that we are trying to get people to have a particular set of tools to be able to create in the world, create arguments, create experiments, create solutions, whatever it is. And so getting into that sort of mindset of that we're here to solve problems, I think would be transformable.
That's interesting.
Do you have, okay, so you just said something really that just went, what, to me, which is create arguments, which is right now in today's world, we've got a lot of problems with people speaking civilly to one another and to figure out ways to compromise and all that. Super quick.
Yeah, I don't mean arguments like create conflict. I mean, like laying out a set of facts in a way that leads to a particular conclusion. So thinking thoughtfully about what supports do you need to persuade somebody in a particular direction.
And how, could give a super quick example of a makerspace thing that did that?
So you could actually, you could like create something on the laser cutter where you have all these different pieces and you had to slot them together as though they were a puzzle. And you look at how does this flow, and does this actually lead you to a particular conclusion, or do you need to rearrange it in order to make this. So making like an essay or something in the sentence level or the paragraph level, like you could actually copy and paste. You can move things around physically and discuss what that means collaboratively, much easier than it's on a Google Doc or something like that.
Super cool. Super cool. We are going to be right back with Karin Forssell talking about making space and moving into AI making, which will be very exciting when we come back from break. Stay with us. We are talking with Karin Forssell about all things making and this next step at the School of Education, which is the AI Makery.
Right. So before we go there, because we ended on a great setup for the AI Makery, or Karin's going to tell us what the final name is. Open the envelope, please.
Ooh.
I asked about the outcomes. I just want to say not everything has to be justified in terms of outcomes. Like, it's okay to listen to music and get to enjoy music just because it's music. It doesn't have to be justified for increasing the STEM workforce.
Okay.
So it's okay.
This is a crazy moment in School's Inn right now. I'm just telling you this because usually you are all about like, why are we doing this, right? And I can't imagine that parents out there are going to be super happy if their kids went to school just to kind of listen to music or make some fun things in the makery.
Right. So
I feel like we've switched roles here, Dan.
I don't know if I want 8 hours a day of kids making chess pieces.
Right.
With a lathe and glue and colored pieces of wood. I agree with that. But I just want to say some things are sort of their own justification. And so you don't always need outcomes. I think there is a place for beauty in the world, Denise, even if it doesn't make anything better.
Oh my gosh,
who are you and what have you done? To hear that.
Who are you and what have you done with Dan Schwartz from the previous episodes? Oh my gosh.
So let me switch to the AI makerspace. So Karin, you and I are going to have to do a little bit of work helping people's imaginations of what you can do in case they haven't had opportunity to go to a makerspace to discover this. But the Graduate School of Education is going to make an AI makerspace, but we're not allowed to use the word makerspace because everybody else on campus who has a makerspace, like engineering, has lots of makerspaces.
Hands-on. Yep.
Right? They disapprove because they think making has to be tangible. I look at them like Blockbuster, where they used to think watching videos had to be done brick and mortar cassettes.
Oh, yeah, you're calling people old.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, they got to move with the times.
Okay.
But that's okay.
So this is more digital making, yes.
Digital making.
Yeah, okay. I mean, my whole life's digital. Why does it have to be tangible? Anyway, Karin, tell us, what is it we're doing? What are we doing now?
So we are starting the AI Tinkery, a sandbox for educators.
Oh, wait, let's say that again. AI Tinkery.
Tinkery. Mm-hmm.
A sandbox for educators.
Right.
Very
so
cute.
One of the differences between this space and others, just like our physical makerspace, is that it is focused on education, K-12 and beyond. Probably more beyond because we're including higher education as well. And it's trying to get at that sort of sense of creativity and competence and communication and collaboration, all those things that we do in makerspaces, and bringing it into this realm of AI tools, specifically generative AI tools. So you can come into this space, which doesn't exist yet, but we're working on it. And you can, I wasn't supposed to say that, was I? And you can go ahead and play with stuff, try something out, come and find out what all the fuss is about if you haven't had any experience before. Maybe you come in for the candy and you stay for like watching a video about a chatbot and then you try out making your own. Or maybe you are going to go a little bit further and you have this question about how can I use this for this particular problem I have in the classroom? Or I'm really scared about the ethics. How can I think about this? And can you give me some examples of AI policies? And what do we know from research? So a place to sort of aggregate all of that and let people just explore, tinker with it.
I think it sounds awesome.
So, so we had a session at a very large event where some of our Crackerjack team presented sort of how to make AI chatbots to teachers. And it was incredibly well attended. And, people would start by sort of saying, nah, this isn't for me. And at the end, they come running up to the teachers showing what they've made, right? I mean, it is the classic making thing where you really want to share and you're proud. So I can imagine coming in and saying, I want to create a lesson to help students compose pictures. How's the Gen AI? What does the generative AI do for me there? What's an example?
Well, for one thing, you can quickly generate lots of examples, and you could set them up, and you could say, so what are you thinking about these different compositions? Which ones do you feel are more effective? Which ones are not? So one of the things that Gen AI does for us is loads of examples really fast.
So I would say, give me an example of a Malamute Labrador mix. Right. And then I'd say, give me a different example, something like that. Or I'd say, give me an example of a little girl who's lost in a friendly forest and meets a grizzly bear.
Yeah.
That has cheese and is playing a flute at the same time. And it can do that.
And it's purple. Yes.
And it's purple.
And it's set on the moon. And you could it doesn't have to be realistic. It can generate these pictures in all sorts of different ways. And by the way, you can also say in the style of so-and-so, Salvador Dali or something. So you can get really specific. And one of my favorite examples of somebody who has done this is one of our colleagues with a 3-year-old daughter, and they wrote a story together. And the child can tell a story. And by the way, through natural language processing, she can just talk it, and the computer will then transcribe it and then generate pictures to go with it. And then you print it out on a color printer, and you've got a storybook authored by a 3-year-old. And that's really cool.
You got me there, because I know not everything has to have outcomes, Dan Schwartz, but the outcome there is potentially getting a kid very excited about literacy and about reading and about creating, right? And understanding the connection between pictures and words. So I came in dubious. I am leaving with a greater appreciation now of that. And also something you said, Karin, that really struck me is this idea of learning how to collaborate and create and think through problems. Those are incredibly important skills. So it's not just we're going in and we're making some sticker books and it's not just actually, Dan, we're going in and listening to music. We're actually doing things to teach skills that kids need in the future, for sure.
Can I defend myself, Denise?
Defend away.
So the great thing about the Gen AI is that people really like to make stuff. Now, the challenge is, can we have it so they get to make stuff that they really like to make, and it forwards their learning as well on things that don't necessarily always involve using Gen AI. So, a simple example is I learned to write by co-authoring with someone who's a better writer than I was. I would write at night, and then he would take it and just completely rewrite it in the morning because he learned that editing's too slow. And then I would do again at night, and I'd see all the moves he made. So I can kind of do this with a computer now, right? And the hypothesis is that I'm going to be a better writer when I see how good it is at saying there are 3 points that we're covering. You can imagine someone whose English isn't their first language, and they get a chance to work with these tools and play with language. So the trick is, how can you make this sort of creative generation cash out in domain knowledge and skills?
I think there's another trick, which is how do you make sure you're teaching them skills for good and not skills for evil? Because I'm seeing a lot of the potential for deep fakes, right? And for people who don't know what that is, like creating pictures of a girl in your class without her top on. And, so are you building in any safeguards at the AI Tinkery?
Guardrails.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where we will wind up with this, because we're sort of evolving as it becomes real. But I do think that educators are always going to be very interested in discussing the ethics. Obviously, there are lots of interest in the bias that comes from the training set being biased to start with. What kinds of issues might there be if students put in a prompt and get something that's totally inappropriate, disruptive, but also misleading? We definitely are going to see more tools. This is my prediction. Over time, we're very early days right now. This is gold rush time. We're going to see more competent, more evolved tools over the next few years. And I think one of the things that we're going to see is sort of more safe spaces for education that are not trained on everything on the internet, but on quality over quantity, for what kinds of answers the AI can give. So we're going to see what kinds of limits it provides. But I think that in schools, we're likely going to have very targeted use of AI tools that help you to do particular things really well, like compare and evaluate. I sort of suspect that our curriculum, it's sort of like when we got the calculators. Remember when, all the debates we had about letting people use calculators in school or on tests? Oh my goodness, right? And now you're expected to, because who does grocery store math in their head anymore? My mother did.
I think Dan Schwartz probably does.
All right.
So Denise, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
With AI, I think we're going to find that we use these tools as helpers to get students to the place where they can recognize good work and they can go further faster and level up with what kinds of writing they're producing. That's my hope.
So I think we could have a very long discussion on policy. We don't want to make the same mistake we did with social media. But, the theory of the AI Tinkery,
Wait, is it Tinkery? It's a Tinkery.
Tinkery. I'm sorry, I don't know.
I kind of like AI Tinkery too, though. I know.
No, it's the Tinkery.
One of the hypotheses behind the AI Tinkery is that we need to get these teachers in there to see what these tools can do.
Yeah.
Right. And to create a set of policies or things that students should learn, like personal policies or social policies. If you haven't experienced this and thought about how to use it, it's going to be too abstract, but I do think we don't want to make the same mistake we made with social media. Right.
Yeah. What would be really cool would be if all the teachers are the ones producing these new tools, because with AI, you can code like nobody's business. It's so much easier. And if we could get qualified teachers designing the new tools for schools, that would be amazing.
I like that. Teachers aren't just using AI, but they're actually creating the tools that work best for their classrooms.
It makes so much sense, right? When teachers are the ones shaping the technology, they can make sure it's practical and impactful for learning. And it's a chance to avoid the pitfalls we saw with social media. If we bring teachers into the conversation early, we can set thoughtful guidelines and make AI a real benefit in schools.
So I like the idea of both teachers and students using the same makerspace. They're both trying to learn how to use these tools. Maybe the students teach the teachers something about how to be a maker and vice versa. And so they get a chance to see what it can do, fire up their imagination, not worry about the outcomes, Denise. And there's a lot of potential here.
No, I love that. I love not worrying about the outcomes. You know that, Dan. I think it's really exciting stuff for the future of education. Teachers, students, tinkering together. Very exciting. So thank you so much, Karin, for such a great conversation. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Schools In. Remember to subscribe to our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune in. I'm Denise Pope.
And I'm David Schwartz. I'm just tinkering with my first name. I thought I'd try it out in a safe space.